One of the most important safeguards against the overzealous behavior of copyright holders is a legal doctrine known in the United States as fair use. Fair use protects the unlicensed reproduction of media for the purposes of criticism, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, research, and other similar uses.
The reason why copyright gives owners rights and material is because it's regarded as a very successful way to encourage creators to make things because it gives them a reward. But copyright law also recognizes that unless people can quote from their own culture, they can't make art, they can't make new work of any kind. Because people draw on their culture to make work. So there are provisions for quoting material without permission or payment, which is fair use.
Copyright is control over ideas and speech, and the First Amendment is supposed to guarantee you, freedom of speech. So in order to make the First Amendment and copyright, work together, you have to have these exceptions in copyright law called fair use.
I mean, what fair use allows you to do is take an element of something which pre-exists, incorporate it in a work that you're completing, be it critical or creative, and make reference to something someone else has done.
In a production such as this one, right, this documentary that you're watching, a producer could take small segments of copyrighted works, pieces of Star Wars or photographs of famous people, and use elements of them in a larger work. And to do that without clearing it, without getting permission from the copyright holder, relies on some faith in fair use.
For the second time in 2 years, X-rated rappers 2 Live Crew won a major Supreme Court decision, this time affirming the crew's right to parody Roy Orbison's classic, Oh Pretty Woman.
One significant test of fair use that dealt with the issue of parody was the infamous 1994 Supreme Court decision involving the rap group 2 Live Crew, who parodied the 1960s pop hit Oh Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison.
The case involved 2 Live Crew taking a Roy Orbison song, Pretty Woman, and turning it into something rather different that dealt with a big hairy woman and her colleague who were going to let me and the boys jump in.
Here, part of the joke or the seriousness of the parody was taking that kind of romanticized view of a woman that was a part of the Orbison song and turning it on its head.
It took almost all of the melody, certainly the characteristic hook, the bass line, and it was a commercial production.
And even though it was a commercial product, even though that album by 2 Live Crew sold millions of copies, the Supreme Court said the fact that it's a parody outweighs that.
That was great because, first of all, it established that a parody does not necessarily have to be funny, because the song is not a very funny song. And it established that parody is worthy of protection.
So it was very important and positive development for free expression and fair use.
A good example of a work that has taken advantage of the fair use doctrine is Robert Greenwald's video documentary Outfoxed. The evidence this documentary used to support its claims consisted of dozens of clips that quote from Fox News. Greenwald used these clips in an attempt to illustrate that Fox was neither fair nor balanced, as its trademark slogan asserts.
They were never going to give permission, and Greenwald knew it. So instead, he archived all of these thousands of hours of footage and just decided, I'm going with it. They can sue me if they want.
And of course, he could never have made the film if he'd had to get permission, because either it would have been denied or the costs would have been astronomical, probably both.
But Fox News chickened out. They weren't even willing to mess with it. And that documentary, which has ramifications in our media space in a lot of different ways, was a great example of standing up for fair use.
My own understanding of fair use actually stems directly from my experience. In 1991, I made a videotape called DREAMWORLDS, which looked at images of women on MTV and its connection to sexual violence. And I did this just as a professor. When I finished this tape, I thought, well, if it's useful to me to use in my own classes, it might be useful to some other people as well. And so I did a very small mailing to other communication departments and to some women's studies departments. And then, lo and behold, one day I got a letter from the legal department of MTV Networks telling me that I was using their copyrighted images and that I had to cease and desist and also recall all the tapes that I'd sent out. Now, when I responded to MTV, I pointed out that fair use and the 1976 Copyright Act and fair use, in fact, allows exactly for the kind of use that I was making of those images. As a result of the controversy with MTV, that led to the setting up of the Media Education Foundation. And I can say that the Media Education Foundation uses fair use not in an aggressive way. I think we use fair use in exactly how it was meant to be used. Every one of our videos, and we've now done 50 of them or so, uses media images without permission. And I think that is not pushing the margins, that's not taking a risk. What we're doing is operating within the law.
The Media Education Foundation has been one of those groups trying to say we have rights too, and I think only by exercising those rights through one's own creativity and free speech is one going to be able to protect it.
So I do think fair use has this vital role to play, but not everything should be a fair use. For example, there was a case involving a documentary film in which, a quote, documentary film, in which somebody simply went out to create a documentary in which they just took every famous little clip of Elvis appearing on the Ed Sullivan Show or on any show where he appeared, the hooks from Elvis's most famous songs, and they strung it together in hours and hours of videotapes and DVDs saying, this is the true Elvis, the most comprehensive Elvis.
You can't just cut together a whole bunch of shots of Elvis singing and say, you'll really love these pictures of Elvis singing. They're very entertaining, and call it fair use.
No, this is just a way of getting stuff without paying for it. So there's a claim where the copyright holders could quite legitimately, in my view, absolutely rightly say, you're just ripping us off and claiming fair use as a shield. And when they did say that, the court said, you're absolutely right. It isn't a fair use, and in my view, it shouldn't have been. A lot of us, when we think about edgy cultural production and subversive this and illegal that, and it all sounds so wonderfully, you know, black-clad and piratey and edgy, we forget the same things can be done to our own artworks. And when we think about that, a slightly queasy feeling descends. We're maybe not quite as sure.
You might make a point with that material that the filmmaker would be outraged by. You might be a very conservative person who is taking the work of a very liberal filmmaker and showing how stupid liberals are.
When we think about fair use, we have to be careful, because we are talking about taking something where someone was making an argument, making a statement, and allowing people to change that without permission. I believe we need to do that. We need to have parody, we need to have commentary, and we need to have criticism. But it would be facile and stupid to say that there's no threat on the other side. There is a threat on the other side.
And so it's clear that fair use is really important to allowing a democracy to function in an information age. But fair use has its limitations. Fair use is ambiguously written, for instance. It's really hard for just an everyday artist or even his or her lawyer to confidently say when something is fair use and when something isn't.
Most documentary filmmakers, I think it's fair to say, are very cautious about invoking fair use, and in fact, most act as if fair use does not exist.
And sometimes a publisher, a producer, a distributor, a theater will tell you, sorry, I'm not even going to play with your stuff. I'm not even going to consider your stuff if you're going to talk about fair use. I need you to clear everything. And clearance can be either too expensive or just completely impossible.
In response to these chilling effects, documentary filmmakers gathered together and defined for their own community what the standards of fair use should be. They crafted a best practices statement, which is encouraging more documentary filmmakers to recognize that fair use exists, not just in theory, but also in the real world.
We can actually really take a stronger stand and defend our rights as filmmakers.
Who owns our history?
This is fair use.